If you're watching this video, then you probably already know that Super Mario Galaxy's musical score is truly out of this world. Ha 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 ha, I'm so funny. Its music masterfully meshes the thunderous power of a full orchestra with the endless versatility of synthesizers, resulting in a truly incredible soundtrack. However, the way that the score is organized between orchestra and synthesizer poses some questions, like, why do some of the tracks sound so cheesy, but others have gone on to become instant classics in the video game music world? To get to the bottom of this, let's start at the beginning. Right from the very first Galaxy, you know that this game's soundtrack is going to be good. Grandiose orchestration, climactic, upbeat harmonies, and catchy melodies all come together to create a truly distinct and memorable sound for a game. What a way to start it off. So, what can we hear here? Here? Well, we can hear harp glissandos transitioning between sections, we can hear the woodwind section melody with some beautiful harmony lines, we can hear lush string chords, low strings, bass lines, and snare drum pulses, all bringing this together. After a bit of listening, we can tell that the entire orchestra is being used effectively, and it sounds incredible. What a way to set the tone for this game. And while we're talking about grandiose orchestral parts of the game, let's look at another example that rivals even Good Egg Galaxy in both its grandness and its popularity. Okay, if you've ever played Super Mario Galaxy, which, let's be real, if you're watching this video, you probably have, then you already saw this coming and would be very disappointed if I left this out of the video. Gusty Garden Galaxy takes all of these ideas of excellent music composition that we've briefly looked at, and it pushes them to their max while adding even more development and variation to its core melody. 8-Bit Music Theory actually has a spectacular video about this if you want to dive in deeper. I'm going to put a link to that in the description as well. With striking notes borrowed from the minor key and flavorful instrumentation choices like classical guitar and solo trumpet, this track was always destined to lodge itself inside your brain forever and ever, for good reason. So, judging from what we've heard so far, you'd think that the entire soundtrack would be this grand orchestral score like this, right? Well, Nintendo actually chose to be a little more adventurous. Yep, you might have seen this one coming too. Although Space Junk Galaxy uses a piano throughout the entire track, it's actually just an electronic sampled one, it's not real. After listening to Space Junk Galaxy dozens of times throughout my life, I can confidently say that every single instrument you can hear in the track is synthetic in some way. Just to be sure, let's check in. What can we hear here? Well, we've got that sampled piano, obviously, several different types of sampled pads, and there's also this electric piano synthesizer-y kind of sound. So comparing this list to the one from Good Egg Galaxy, you really start to wonder, how are these tracks even part of the same game? There's virtually no overlap here. And speaking of tracks that barely sound like they're from the same game, here's another example. Here, we have even more synthesized sounds, except they all sound quite different, creating a very different vibe than Space Junk Galaxy, while still not using a single real, recorded instrument. In these synthetic examples, why does Nintendo opt for using synthesizers and sampled instruments instead of the orchestra? Maybe it was a practical reason, like booking studio time with the musicians, budgetary concerns, or keeping the scope of the soundtrack production reasonable, but this is Nintendo, and it's a Mario game. If they wanted a full orchestra on every track, then they could definitely do it. So, I think there's actually a very simple and powerful creative reason here instead. Less is more. You see, since not every track in the game is bombastic, in-your-face symphony orchestra, it really helps those parts of the soundtrack to stand out even more. Giving the standout tracks like Good Egg Galaxy and Gusty Garden Galaxy some space really helps them to stand out more. You see, if every track stands out, then no track stands out. And speaking of standing out, let's look at yet another amazing composition in the soundtrack, this time combining the power of the orchestra and the synthesizers that we've talked about. Okay, I said less is more just now, but sometimes more is more. Battle Rock Galaxy takes the very best from both the orchestra and the synthesizers, and it combines them in a very fun and grandiose way. Like, I just love listening to this track, it's awesome. Actually, it also steals the entirety of Space Fantasy to use as the background synth layer, showing that this soundtrack really makes the most of all that it has. See, you can just fade back and forth between them seamlessly. I love this game. I think the addition of that in the background, although it's subtle, adds the perfect amount of out-of-this-worldness that makes this game so iconic. And finally, let's look at one last example to tie everything together. What an epic finale! With the pulsing strings and triumphant brass combined with the telltale Super Mario Galaxy synthesizers, this track perfectly sets the epic tone that the end of Mario's adventure deserves. In a way, this final track is the perfect example of Super Mario Galaxy's musical ingenuity, effortlessly combining full orchestra and synthesizers. While it's all too easy to focus only on the classic tracks like Good Egg Galaxy or Gusty Garden Galaxy, don't forget to appreciate the masterful way that Nintendo bridged the gap between the classic synthesized sounds of the past and the more modern live orchestra style that would define its future sounds. Instead of awkwardly jumping from one to the next, or combining them in some haphazard way, Nintendo managed to create an out-of-this-world masterpiece of a soundtrack, bridging the gap between orchestral and synthetic instruments. A soundtrack that I continue to marvel at and listen to over and over again, all these years later. Hey guys, I loved putting this video together, so if you want to hear more stuff like this from me, then make sure that you share this video and subscribe, because I'm going to be putting out more stuff soon. See ya next video.